How's it going, everybody? Welcome to OP Entertainment. I'm Omar Darwish.
I'm Pratik Cherian.
And this is our review of The Menu. We're going to go spoiler-free. Not too much to spoil about the movie overall, but, just in case you don't want to know anything, we're going to go spoiler-free. Pratik, what'd you think of this?
Oh, man. Overall, I liked it. I really, really liked it. I think you have to go into it expecting it's a dark comedy. It's not a horror film.
Yeah.
And I think that expectation is important. It's a really difficult film to talk about because I want to talk because more important than the plot or performances or anything like that is just the messaging underneath, and it's hard to
I think
really
we can get
into
we can get into the messaging. We'll save it for a little bit later on, but just general spoiler free thoughts. You liked it?
Overall, I liked it. Yes.
Overall, I liked it too. I agree. It works best as a dark comedy. I didn't know really what to expect from this movie. The trailer was vague enough that I didn't really know if it was going to be like Get Out or if it was going to be pure comedy or horror. And I feel like tonally it is. I won't say it's tonally a mess, but it's tonally uneven.
It's interesting that you brought up Get Out, because I think about halfway into the movie I'm like, this is actually kind of close to Get Out. And then
as far as tone, or as far as what?
I just in general.
Okay.
When I'm trying to think of the movie it reminded me of, it kind of reminded me of Get Out. Not nearly as good, but in that ballpark.
I wish it was a bit more in tone with Get Out,
Sure.
a little. And as far as Get Out's a bit more serious than this, while you have some laughs in that, this felt like, while I was laughing consistently, I was laughing consistently. So it was happening quite often.
And it wasn't just us. I felt like our theater, there was a lot of laughter.
Our theater, I don't it was kind of strange. Our theater was laughing like it was a Will Ferrell comedy. And I saw Will Ferrell was a producer at the end, so I was like, that's funny. But they were laughing like we're watching Anchorman. It's gut bustingly laughing at some of these jokes. I'm like, it's funny. It's good.
I'm definitely among them. There was a lot of really
You definitely were. It didn't get me on that level, but it was funny enough. For the 100 jokes, it landed.
I think it's one of those where the humor in this is not it's not slapstick. It's not like comedy humor, but it's really
it's not comedy humor.
Not as a genre, it doesn't fall in it's not Anchorman, it's not I don't know, 21 Jump Street. It's not that, but it's really, really
it's kind of out of nowhere comedy, but it happens so often that it's not out of nowhere anymore, which is why I feel like it's totally kind of a mess.
It's partly the randomness. I would say most of it is just really subtle and clever.
Let's talk about the standout of this movie, Ralph Fiennes, obviously, right? I thought Anya Taylor-Joy is great, but Ralph Fiennes was awesome. The comedy comes from his reactions and his commitment to how serious this character is.
Sure.
I thought that was funny. Everything he's doing, and then just the other people. If you want to talk about them, the other people that are there at the restaurant, we'll call it, right?
Sure.
Man, they didn't flesh them out.
No, they're there to act as stereotypes, and they're there to react to Ralph Fiennes' chef.
Sure.
That's their role. I do like how this movie, especially in the beginning, kind of jumps from table to table. You're in many ways, it almost feels like walking through a restaurant where you hear scraps of conversation. Because even when we're focused on one table, you can still kind of hear the conversation at another table. I thought that was really cool.
And it's quite obviously the point too, because they'll literally just cut to them and be like, oh, I saw this person, that's nice, and then cut to another table. It's well, there was no point in that conversation. Didn't need to be there. And at first I thought to myself, edited out, should have been edited out. Why is that in there? But you're right. It's just because it's trying to create the atmosphere of this is a regular restaurant or whatever. And honestly, that's pretty necessary, because otherwise it seems like you're just in a creepy house. It's not creepy. It's a very nice mansion house on an island. But you're right. It did a good job of capturing that it's a restaurant.
I do think so. One of my complaints about this movie is, and I think it gets more pronounced as the movie goes along, but it's just kind of it's unrealistic to expect these characters to just keep going along with what's happening on screen.
100%.
That's one of my complaints, and I do think that setting the stage and framing the atmosphere in the beginning does a lot of work to mitigate that. It doesn't succeed all the way, but it does make sense. All right, this is the kind of atmosphere we're playing in, and so much of societal norms is about just going along with the atmosphere of the room you're in. So that kind of makes sense. It falls apart even more at the end, but I do think because of that atmosphere, you could kind of sort of explain away some of the stuff in the middle.
Yeah, in the middle, you're right. By the end, it's like, why is anybody here? Why is anybody doing this? And you're right. You could argue the metaphor of, we idly sit by and watch so much chaos go on throughout our lives or whatever. But it gets to the point where the ending didn't. I don't know. The ending definitely was not good.
To me, the ending was the weakest part of the film.
Yeah,
but. Yeah,
the weakest part of the film. We're gonna get into the message. We're gonna get into the message of the film. We're not getting into anything spoilery, but minor details. So if you don't want to anything, maybe skip to the end. But Nicholas Holt's character in this, he's essentially me. All right, he's someone who idolizes this chef, this artist, and is kind of pretentious. But he's essentially someone who idolizes. He's a fan. I feel like he represents fandom, right? Fandom who does the research and is just super obsessed with their fandom, right?
Yeah, I guess.
How would you describe Nicholas Hoult?
See, I think it's more like it's not so it's fandom, but like the thing but where your fandom makes you better than everyone else. Like there's a lot of the pretentiousness baked in.
Sure, yeah. But I just feel like they didn't do a good job of separating him from just a fan who
I don't know. I saw him and I was just like, that's Omar. That's just Omar. I get exactly what they're going for here.
There's scenes in particular where he's talking to Anya Taylor-Joy about like I know you're not interested in any of this, but this guy's like a god, and like the art is, and like he's talking about like how nuanced and how layered the art is, and like the meanings of everything, and I'm like, man, I can't tell you how many times I've been talking to my girlfriend about like cinema and movies and like just like try to get it,
and she's got the glazed over look on her face, like
but. I don't know. They make some choices. I won't go into exactly what happens, but they make some choices with this character where I just feel like this movie is really poking fun at. And for me, it felt like the main message of this movie was that critics / fandom is ruining art in general. And I don't agree with that assessment. However, I like the movie.
I think we disagree on the message of the movie. I think it's making a broader point just about the way that art is made and received in society. Sure. I don't think it's specifically going.
But it does call out who the movie thinks is the reason for why art is everything that's wrong with art now.
I think
there's a very specific line. There's a very specific line.
Yeah, but I think
finger pointing.
Yeah, but I think that there at points there's other lines that point the finger at other characters. I'm not going to go into details, but yeah,
sure. That being said, I don't know if I agree with the assessment of the writers of this movie.
That's fair, but I think that they make their point. It's a well-made point, even if you disagree with it.
And all right, and then staying on the Nicholas Hoult thing, I love Nicholas Hoult.
Sure.
I feel, and I know we disagree on this, I felt like he was just acting in a different movie. He was just as committed as everybody else to his character, but his character was not in the same movie as everybody else.
I thought this is the part we disagree on. I thought it was an intentional choice because his character. Without really spoiling things, but his character is in that room for entirely different reasons than everybody else in the movies in that room. So it makes sense that like the way that he reacts to things or the way he comes across or the way he acts is going to be different than them. Because in many ways he's almost like he's elevating himself like he deserves to be in that room when he doesn't necessarily.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. I can't dig any more without spoiling. So
it's hard. Yeah, you're right. It's hard to dig in without, spoiler discussion coming soon. I really feel like I could do a spoiler talk on this.
Easily.
Yeah, which honestly, that's a sign of a good movie. I feel like I want to keep talking about this movie. This movie is one where it's going to make you think about it later on.
Right.
I don't know who wrote this. Do we know?
It came up on the credits. I don't remember.
I'd be more interested in what the director is going to do next versus what the writer is going to do next. If that makes sense. Because I liked how this movie was put together. I didn't like the story overall that it told. And I felt like the ends didn't really justify the.
I thought the end kind of fell apart a little bit,
yeah.
But I do think, like, to your point about the directing and really the cinematography too. I just thought the way the story was framed. Yeah. I thought that there's if you've seen a lot of like cooking shows or like if you've watched any of that, like there's a lot of things that this movie does that reminds you of like a high-end cooking show. For better or worse, but I thought just like the way they shoot everything was really, really stylized and really, really well done.
It felt like if there was gonna be like a Gordon Ramsay type show where they took Gordon Ramsay out, and it was like Willy Wonka, and it was like a dark Willy Wonka adventure. Tell me this wasn't a dark Willy Wonka adventure. I mean, Willy Wonka's already kind of messed up, but like this felt like that to me in parts, which I love Willy Wonka, so I was here for it. But
Johnny Depp did a great job in that movie.
How'd you feel about the pacing of this movie? Okay, we're not even gonna get into what he just said. How did you feel about the pacing of this movie, Pratik?
Overall, I thought it moved pretty well.
The first half of the movie, I'll say, was moving. I was like, wow, this is really well paced. And then I felt like it hit a very immediate stop for me.
See, I don't know that it hit. The way I thought of it was it almost. Where it hit a wall was when it crossed over into that, okay, these reactions are unbelievable territory. Yeah. That's when it started to okay.
Well, it gets to this point where you think, oh, we're going to get some character progression now. Yeah. And it just, no, not at all. And they're so they're literally really just sitting there doing nothing, kind of chatting and not adding anything to the characters, the story or anything. And I feel like that moment, and you probably know what I'm talking about. It's about half, maybe beginning of third act, I guess.
Sure.
But it stops the movie right in its tracks for me, and I'm like, okay, so this might be a movie where I watch the first 2 acts and I'm good. But I really enjoyed this movie, though. I feel like I'm talking about it like I didn't, which is kind of what I do a lot. But I hated this, and this, and that's what I love.
That's why the movie hates you.
Hated all of this. It's a 10. It's a 10. But
all right, do you want to score it, actually?
Despite this movie pointing its finger at me and being like, you suck, you're the problem, I think I'm going to give it like an 8. I kind of enjoyed it. Like, I don't know how rewatchable, like how much I'm going to go back to it. For the visuals alone, and I like the aesthetic of the movie, I think I'll go back to it, just maybe I'll have on in the background or something like that.
I was thinking that as well. Like, I definitely throw this on and just have it playing.
I put it in like Jordan Peele's Us territory. Like that's where I have it. Like it's good enough. It's good enough. I enjoyed it.
It's worth checking out. I would recommend people watch it.
Yeah. I could see certain people being a big fan of this. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. As far as score, man, I'm gonna go with an 8 because I could go anywhere between a 7 and a 9. So let's just stick with an 8. Subject to change.
It's so funny. We like this movie the same amount for like just different reasons though.
No, I really liked it. I thought the acting performances were great. We talked about the directing, the cinematography.
We didn't really talk about Anya Taylor-Joy that much. I thought she was really well. I'm excited to see her in more things. She's kind of getting to the point where like she's not really expanding her reach for me. She's kind of doing the same thing. Like the last movie that I saw her in was Last Night in Soho, and I thought that was great. But this feels more like just kind of a actor for hire kind of performance. You know, it was fine, but like
I think part of that is because she's like there's 3 names in this movie, and she's probably the biggest one.
Like we're walking out, I see the poster. I'm like, it took me halfway through the movie to realize she's the main star of the movie, honestly. Right. So
but no, overall, I loved it. I recommend it.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to say? Take us out.
Well, we've got more movie reviews coming next week. I think we've got Glass Onion, Fablemans. One of those.
We're still deciding.
Yeah, we're deciding.
We'll bring one of them to you.
See you guys.
See ya.